Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I guess I should start with some background so this all makes sense. I'm 29, mixed race, my mom's African American, and my dad's Caucasian. The thing is, since my dad's the white parent, I ended up with straight hair, which throws people off all the time. Growing up in Texas, everyone thought I was Mexican. I never really cared much about it until recently. About 3 years ago, I met my wife. She's white and she had a son from a previous relationship. His biological father isn't really in the picture anymore. The guy just kind of drifted away after they split up. When I met this little boy, he was only 1 year old, and honestly, it was love at first sight. Not just with my wife, but with him too. I know he's not biologically mine, but I've been raising him since he could barely walk. He's 4 now, and he calls me dad. That's all that matters to me. We moved to Massachusetts about a year after we got married, and honestly, it's been great. I work night shifts at a warehouse, which means I'm usually pretty exhausted during the day. My wife handles most of the daytime errands while I sleep, and it works for us. She's amazing, works full-time, takes care of our son, keeps the house running. I try to help when I can, but she's definitely the superhero in our family. So about a week ago, something happened that I'm still angry about. I was actually awake during the day for once, just sitting on the couch when my wife mentioned she needed to grab some groceries and run a few errands. Normally, she'd just handle it herself, but I could see she was tired. She does so much for us, and I thought it would be nice to give her a break. I offered to go for her and told her I'd take our son with me so she could have some real peace and quiet. She smiled at me like I'd just offered her a vacation. I grabbed my son, we got in the car, and headed out. We hit up a few stores first, picked up some stuff from the pharmacy, stopped at the post office. My son was being his usual energetic self, chattering away about everything he saw. The kid's a social butterfly, always saying hi to strangers and making people smile. I love that about him. We finally made it to the grocery store, which was our last stop. I had a short list from my wife, just basics like milk, bread, some canned vegetables. My son was running ahead of me down the aisles, laughing and staying within my sight. He knows the rules: don't run into people, stay where I can see you. I was looking for canned corn when he jogged to the end of the aisle. An older woman was coming from the other direction, and I heard him greet her in his adorable 4-year-old way. He introduced himself excitedly, telling her he was 4 years old and saying his name was Ryan. I smiled to myself. He was still working on his grammar, but his enthusiasm was infectious. The older woman looked down at him and told him he shouldn't be running around alone. She said they should go find his parents. I figured she just hadn't seen me yet, so I called out to him and asked him to come back. He ran back toward me, spinning in circles like kids do, just being happy and energetic. I kept scanning the shelves while the woman walked past me and stopped behind me. I didn't think anything of it. It's a grocery store. People need to share space. I turned my cart around and started heading toward the front registers when she suddenly moved her cart directly in front of me, blocking my path. I said excuse me and tried to go around her, but she moved her cart again, blocking me once more. I thought maybe she was confused or didn't realize she was in my way. I said excuse me again and tried another direction. She blocked me again. That's when I realized something was wrong. I apologized and told her we'd get out of her way, but she said I wasn't going anywhere with that child. I was confused and asked if she meant my son. She insisted that wasn't my child because he was white and I was Mexican. She even accused me of not knowing his name until he'd told her. My blood pressure spiked immediately. I was exhausted, running on barely any sleep, and I inherited my father's short temper. I told her whatever and asked her to just move because my wife was waiting at home. She called me a liar and said I wasn't taking him anywhere, calling me a pervert. My son had moved closer to me now, holding onto my leg. I could feel him trembling a little. He was scared, and this woman was the reason why. I pointed out that he was standing close to me because he trusted me, and that she was the one scaring him. I told her to buzz off. She refused and insisted he was scared of me but didn't know how to express it yet. Then she looked down at my son with this fake sweet voice and told him she was there to rescue him. She asked him to come with her. My son shook his head and held my leg tighter. Thank God he knew better than to go with strangers. But this lady wasn't taking no for an answer. Then she did something I still can't fully process. She grabbed my son and started running. I stood there for maybe 2 seconds in complete shock. My brain couldn't comprehend what was actually happening. My son started screaming, really screaming, and she was just running through the store with him, telling him not to worry and promising he wouldn't be hurt. That snapped me back to reality. I took off after her, yelling for someone to stop her. I shouted that she was kidnapping my son. People were staring but seemed frozen in confusion. Thankfully, a store employee near the exit heard me and stepped in front of her, blocking her path. The woman immediately started accusing me, claiming I was Mexican and trying to kidnap her grandson. My son was crying hysterically, reaching his arms out toward me. She still wouldn't let him go. He even slapped her face a few times, trying to get free. I won't lie, that part made me want to laugh despite everything. A manager showed up looking completely overwhelmed. He asked what was going on. The woman spoke first, pointing at me and calling me a pervert. She claimed I was trying to kidnap her grandson and she was trying to escape with him. I told the manager that was my son and called her a psycho. I demanded she let him go. The manager looked between us, clearly not sure what to believe. I pulled out my phone and showed him pictures of me and my son, photos going back over a year, showing us together at birthdays, parks, at home. The woman accused me of faking all the photos. I stared at her in disbelief. How would someone even fake that many photos? But she wasn't done. 2 other women had gathered around, and they were taking her side. One of them claimed she'd seen me trying to kidnap the child and that the first woman had saved him. The third woman agreed, saying she'd witnessed it too. She added that there was no way we were related because of our different skin tones. She even said I should be arrested. Someone called the police. Honestly, I was relieved because I knew they could check the security cameras. But I also called my wife because I needed backup, and I knew she'd get there fast. I wasn't wrong. My wife showed up around the same time as the police officers. When my son saw her, he cried out for his mama and begged her to help. My wife saw this stranger holding our crying son and lost it. She screamed at the woman to let him go immediately. The woman responded calmly, calling my wife sweetie and saying she was just trying to protect him from me, the pervert. The second woman chimed in, repeating that they'd all witnessed me trying to kidnap him and this woman had saved him. The officer looked confused and turned to the first woman, asking if she'd said this was her grandson. My wife immediately said she had no idea who that woman was. She pulled out her phone and showed the officer a picture of her actual mother. The first woman backtracked, admitting he wasn't her grandson but insisting she was only trying to protect him from me. The second woman backed her up, claiming she'd witnessed the whole thing and seen me snatch the child and try to run. She said I needed to be arrested. The third woman agreed and pointed at my wife, saying she should be thankful this woman had been there to save her son since she apparently just let him run around wherever. My wife asked who they were talking about. All 3 women pointed at me. My wife then revealed I was her husband. The first woman seemed shocked and repeated the word. My wife asked who they thought had called her and gotten her there so fast. I handed my ID to the officer and the manager. My wife did the same. We both showed photos proving we were actually a family. The officer nodded, took some notes, and handed everything back. The 3 women kept insisting it was all fake, that my wife was in on some kidnapping scheme. My wife unleashed a string of words I won't repeat here, but she made her point very clear. Then the officer turned to the manager and asked if the cameras worked in the store. The manager confirmed they had cameras both inside and outside. The officer said they should go review the footage. The 3 women's faces went completely pale. The officer disappeared into the back office. When he came back, his expression was stern. He'd seen everything. Me arriving with my son, walking the aisles together, and most importantly, the woman grabbing my son and running. The officer asked if I'd like to press charges. The first woman immediately said yes. The officer turned to her sharply and asked why he would be asking her that question. He told her to shut her mouth and sit down. He turned to me and repeated the question. I said absolutely. The first woman was arrested for attempted kidnapping, false imprisonment, providing a false police report, and child endangerment. The other two were charged with filing false reports. When we got home and I was giving my son a bath, I noticed bruises on his arms where she'd grabbed him. He bruises easily and the marks were bad. I took pictures and contacted the officer, which added a child abuse charge to her case. I have court later this year. The officer said he'd follow up with me in a few weeks. My son's doing fine now, but I'm still furious about the whole thing. I guess I should start by explaining my situation back then. I was 14 and my parents owned this little restaurant in town. It wasn't anything fancy, just a neighborhood place where regulars came in for decent food at fair prices. My mom and dad worked crazy hours there, which meant I spent a lot of time either at home alone or hanging around the restaurant after school. The other thing you need to know is that I had really long hair back then. I'm talking down to my waistline. I was proud of it, took forever to brush it out every morning, but I liked how it looked. That detail matters, trust me. So on days when I didn't have any after-school stuff and my parents were stuck at work, I'd head over to the restaurant and grab dinner there. Usually I'd eat in the back office where my dad did paperwork, but that day was slow and the office was cramped. I wanted to spread out my homework and study while I ate, so I took a booth in the main dining area. The system was simple. When I ate there, the server would just write my name on the bill, and my parents would tip them 25% at the end of their shift. No money changed hands between me and the staff. Everyone who worked there knew me, knew the arrangement, and it had never been a problem. That day I ordered my usual 8 while going over my history notes and finished up in about an hour. I packed my papers back into my bag, left the table clean, and headed for the door. This was routine. I'd done it dozens of times before. Then suddenly my head jerked backward so hard I thought my neck would snap. Someone had grabbed a fistful of my hair and was pulling me back toward the dining room. A woman told me not so fast and called me Missy in this stern voice. The pain was instant and terrible. I immediately started crying because it hurt so much, and I tried to turn around to see who was doing this to me. I tried telling her that I didn't have to pay and that it was already taken care of, but she wasn't listening. She had a death grip on my hair and was literally dragging me by it toward the back of the restaurant. Every time I tried to pull away or twist free, she just yanked harder. I could feel strands ripping out. I begged her to stop and tried explaining that my parents owned the place, but she just said sure they did. In this sarcastic tone, she added that everyone says that, like I was some common thief she'd caught. She walked me past confused diners who were staring at us, and I was crying the whole way. The humiliation was almost as bad as the pain. Then my dad came out from the back office, probably because he heard the commotion. He demanded to know what was going on, using language I won't repeat here. Karen puffed up her chest like she'd just caught a serial killer. She announced that she'd caught me trying to dash out on my bill. She sounded so pleased with herself. My dad looked at me, saw the tears streaming down my face, and his expression went from confused to furious in about 2 seconds. He asked me if I'd explain to her why I didn't have to pay. I told him I'd tried, but she wouldn't listen to me. His voice went cold as he told her to let his daughter go and said he was calling the police. She did let go of my hair finally, but then she just stood there with her arms crossed, tapping her foot. She was actually waiting for the police to arrive like they were going to arrest me or something. The restaurant was only a couple blocks from the police station, so 2 officers showed up pretty quickly. Karen looked at me with this smug expression and told me I was going to get what was coming to me. She called me Missy again. I don't know what her deal was with that word, and somehow she still hadn't connected the dots between my dad calling me his daughter and me calling him daddy. Like, how dense can you get? The officers walked in and my dad immediately told them he wanted to press charges on my behalf for assault. He listed off other charges too, things I didn't even know were charges, but apparently pulling someone by their hair and dragging them around counts as a bunch of different crimes. Karen's face went through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and then pure panic when one of the officers pulled out handcuffs and put them on her wrists. She sputtered out that this couldn't be happening and insisted she hadn't done anything wrong. The officer told her that she'd assaulted a minor and needed to come with them. The other officer asked to see the security footage from the dining room, and my dad took him back to review it. Meanwhile, Karen was being walked toward the door and she was absolutely losing it. She kept screaming that this was insane and that she was just helping. She yelled that I was the one stealing and that they should arrest me instead of her. The officer just kept guiding her toward the patrol car while she went on about how they were arresting the wrong person. Some of the diners had their phones out recording the whole thing. I stood there rubbing my scalp where she'd pulled my hair, watching this woman who'd assaulted me get exactly what she deserved. My dad came back out with the other officer who'd seen the footage of her dragging me by my hair through the restaurant. The officer confirmed to my dad that it was pretty clear-cut and said they'd be in touch about pressing charges. They took her away while she continued screaming. My dad gave me a hug and checked to make sure I was okay. A few of the regular customers came over to make sure I was alright too, which was nice. The next day I went to the salon and had them cut my hair to shoulder length. I told myself it was just for a change, but really I couldn't stop thinking about how vulnerable that long hair had made me. My dad told me later that Karen got charged with assault on a minor, false imprisonment, and a couple other things. She tried to fight it, but the video footage was pretty damning. I never saw her again, but she tried to sue my parents for emotional distress or something ridiculous that got thrown out immediately. A few years back, our store rolled out a home delivery service. It was brand new to us, and like anything new, there were some hiccups at first. Our team worked incredibly hard to iron out the kinks, and honestly, we did a pretty good job. Within a few months, the system was running smoothly, and most of the problems we dealt with weren't even our fault. Customers would select the wrong delivery date, accidentally choose pickup instead of delivery, or mess up their address details. But somehow, every single time it was our fault. Go figure. Now, I wasn't officially a supervisor, but my role required me to make supervisory decisions when managers weren't available. I handled customer queries, coordinated with drivers, and basically kept things running smoothly. It was demanding, but I enjoyed it most days. So one afternoon, I get a call from one of our drivers. He tells me he's at the delivery address, but something's wrong. The property looks completely abandoned, like nobody's lived there in weeks. Windows are boarded up, the lawn is overgrown, the whole deal. I pull up the order on our system and immediately notice something odd. The street address and the postcode don't match up at all. I Google the postcode and discover what happened. The customer had updated his street name when he moved, but completely forgot to change the postcode. Our drivers rely on their GPS systems, which use the postcode to navigate. So naturally, the GPS took him to the old address. The actual new address was 30 miles in the opposite direction, just outside our delivery catchment area. According to company policy, drivers are only required to wait 15 minutes for a no-show. It's in the terms and conditions that customers agree to when they place their orders. I tell the driver to bring the items back to the store. My plan is simple: put the order on the next delivery vehicle heading out that direction. The customer would still get his shopping that same day, just a bit later than originally scheduled. I'm in the middle of gathering the paperwork and noting the mileage discrepancy when the phone rings. It's someone from our customer service department. They tell me they have a customer on the line asking about his delivery. I say sure, and ask them to put him through. Now, I should mention that we always try to give customers our direct store number. The customer service line charges 75 pence per minute, which works out to about $1.06. Our store line was only 15 pence per minute, or free depending on your phone plan. Much cheaper. The customer comes on the line. Let's call him Ken. Ken immediately starts complaining about how he's been waiting on his delivery and hasn't received it yet. He says it's now over 10 minutes past his delivery slot and wants to know what's happening. I try to explain that I was actually just about to call him because there's been a mix-up with his address. Before I can finish, he cuts me off and accuses me of lying. He demands to know where his delivery is. I attempt to explain again that when he updated his address, he forgot to change his postcode, which caused the driver to go to his old property. He immediately interrupts and insists he didn't forget to change anything. He blames me for doing something wrong. I assure him it was nothing I did and try to explain that my driver is on the last of his deliveries and is on his way back to the store to hand over his goods to another driver. Before I can finish explaining that he'll still get his delivery later that evening, Ken cuts me off again. He demands that I get on the phone with my driver and order him to turn around immediately. I explain that I can't do that because the driver needs to stick to his allotted delivery route or risk running a service investigation. This was company policy at the time to prevent drivers from being late to other deliveries, though it did eventually change after numerous complaints. I start to say that I'm willing to find another solution when he interrupts me yet again. Ken goes on a rant about how he owns a delivery company himself, and if any of his drivers pulled that stunt, they wouldn't be working for him anymore. That's when I realize I'm not getting anywhere with this guy. He's not interested in solutions or explanations. He just wants to rant. So I put the phone on speaker, place it on the counter, and get back to work. I've already made my decision at this point. I'm canceling his order. While Ken continues his tirade, I clean the entire delivery area. I sweep the floors, wipe down surfaces, clean up spills, take out the trash, stack the crates, and organize everything for the morning shift. A manager from another department walks by and stops when he hears the shouting coming from my phone. He listens for about 2 minutes, looks at me with a disgusted expression, and calls Ken a jerk before walking away. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the ranting stops. Ken asks if I'm still there. I quickly answer and confirm that I am. I look at the clock. 45 minutes have passed since I answered this call. Add the 10 minutes at the start and the roughly 20 minutes he spent waiting in the customer service queue, and we're looking at a pretty hefty phone bill. Ken demands to know what I'm going to do about his delivery. I try once more to explain that I won't be able to send the driver back because he's already returned to the store, but I would happily arrange an alternative. Too late. He launches into another massive rant. This time I leave him on the phone and walk away completely. I go to the toilet and take my time. Then I step outside for a cigarette break. I grab a soda from the break room and a packet of crisps. I figure he'll eventually tire himself out and hang up. 30 minutes later, I pick up the receiver. At this point, we're at roughly an hour and 15 minutes on an expensive customer service line. Ken is finishing a sentence when I put the phone to my ear. He asks again what I'm going to do about his delivery. I tell him that, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do at this point. I explain that I can direct him back to customer service to file a formal complaint, but I'm not authorized to redeliver his goods. Ken immediately tells me not to bother. He says to cancel his order and that he won't be using our services again. With the least condescending tone I can manage, I apologize that he feels that way and wish him a nice day before hanging up. I immediately call the store manager to give her a heads up in case he decides to file a complaint. She bursts out laughing when I tell her the story and says she'll handle it if anything comes through. Nothing ever did. I never heard from Ken again, and we never received another order from him. I did the math later that day. Ken spent approximately an hour and 15 minutes on that phone call. At 75 pence per minute, his phone bill came to around £82.50. That's about $116.60. His total delivery order was £25, $33.30. The absolute minimum requirement for a delivery order. When I realized what he'd done, I couldn't stop laughing. This guy, who supposedly owned his own delivery company, had just paid nearly 4 times the cost of his groceries to yell at me. He spent all that time being rude and abusive, refusing to let me speak or offer solutions, just to rack up a massive phone bill for himself. I would have loved to see his face when that bill arrived. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.